Welcome back into the college football every game on the board podcast, simulcast live on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. We got Jeff from Oskiem Sports joining me for the closing segment of all of the American football games here. Jeff, welcome in. How you feeling?
Good, Drew. How are you today?
Good, man. I'm excited to get your opinion here. We got some, this is the last section of the Every Game on the Board podcast. So guys, a reminder, if you want to hear the first three sections, they're available on the WagerTalk YouTube channel or wherever you're downloading your podcast at Sports Memo Podcast. We're going 213, 214, Troy, App State down through the end of the card. We got some late night action on Saturday night as well towards the end. But starting off here in the Sun Belt, Jeff, we got Troy at App State, 48.5 being the total. App State minus 13 in the hook at home in Boone, North Carolina.
Yeah, Drew, we've seen some money come in on Troy for the past couple of days now since the opening number, I think, was 16 and a half, something like that. The market has been betting it down ever since. I agree with that move. I think we have an upset alert on our hands here. Appalachian State comes in off a big upset loss against Coastal Carolina. They were outgained by over 100 yards by the Chanticleers. I always say it's a bubble burst. You know, here we have a deflated home favorite because they are essentially eliminated out of the Sun Belt Conference title game. They're 11-1 straight up and 10-2 against the spread off a loss. The Appalachian State is, but the Trojans, they're off back-to-back upset losses, but they have their starting quarterback back, Gunnar Watson. He's back from injury. I like the Trojans in this game. I would take the points. If you can get 14, take it with Troy.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Troy's the side here. App State, this isn't really the same App State program as years past, Jeff. And the quarterback kind of banged up 2 games ago. He left in an ambulance. Zach Thomas. He came back last game, did play. I wouldn't say he played great, but they did lose both straight up and ATS against Coastal Carolina. And Troy's been a solid program, and in the trenches they're pretty strong as well. So I think if you're looking for an underdog on Saturday's card, I agree with you, Jeff. Troy, the Trojans might be the side. As we head out west to the Pac-12, up next, 2:15, 2:16, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific kick here. Arizona at UCLA. We're seeing the Bruins minus 10 in the hook in the Rose Bowl, 69 the total here, Jeff.
Yeah, Drew, here's a Arizona Wildcat team in the program. The football program in itself is a complete dumpster fire. If you look at this program, they're off back-to-back losses against USC and Washington. They were outgained by over 100 yards in both games. 1 year ago, Kevin Sumlin and the Arizona Wildcats beat Colorado. They were 4-1 last year. Exactly 1 year to this date. They have not won a single game since. They've been outscored by double digits in 8 of those 9 losses. The seat is getting blistering hot. Kevin Sumlin, I think, is not going to last the season here. Arizona is a complete disaster. You have UCLA, on the other hand. I think they're going to be primed for this game. They're off a very close loss to Oregon, 38-35. They lost their starting. They were playing a backup quarterback, and several starters were out because of COVID. But I've read that Thompson Robinson is back. He's probable under center for UCLA, but they're still coping with COVID issues. So there's a lot of uncertainty swirling around this UCLA football program. But they are looking to avenge the 20-17 upset loss to Arizona last year. But they're 1-6 against the number of their last 7 as a home favorite. This is a tough game to call after it was basically an all-in game for UCLA last week against Oregon, 3 points short of pulling the big upset. But I can't back Kevin Sumlin and the Arizona Wildcats. Like I said, 1 year to the day, they were 4-1. You fast forward, they've lost 9 straight, 2 in a row so far to start the 2020 campaign. I would lay it or forget it altogether.
You bring up Kevin Sumlin and the struggles he's had here at Arizona. It's kind of an interesting thing of what's happened to him. Remember back in the day, he was the head coach for Houston. He had Case Keenum. They were putting up huge points. He was a great bet. And then he got the job at Texas A&M. They did very well. I mean, had a 10-win season, I believe his first, maybe even his first 2 years there. Now, granted, he had Johnny Manziel there, throwing it around, which was a great college quarterback. But then it kind of, got stale in College Station. Now he comes to Arizona. Do you think they could turn it around and kind of get, a boost up here, or you think this is going to end badly for him?
I think it's going to end badly for him. I mean, I like Kevin Sumlin. I thought he was an excellent hire by Arizona. I was really bullish on the Wildcats when they hired him. I thought he would turn the program around and really put them in the right direction. I've been very disappointed with them. He has a lot of veterans coming back. I think they're ranked in the 30s for returning production, Arizona is. I thought Kevin Sumlin would get more out of his players than he has. I will say, though, they almost pulled the upset against USC in their season opener. They were up, I think, double digits, and they once again USC pulled a miracle comeback in their season opener to snag that one from Arizona. So maybe it makes sense they were flat last week against Washington, but this is a game that Arizona must have because Kevin Sumlin's seat, I'm telling you, it's on fire, and the alumni are not going to put up with it much longer.
Yeah, for sure, Jeff. And welcome in on the chat box, everybody watching live on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Carolina, Paco, welcome in, guys. Paco Healy, always good to see you. Happy Thanksgiving. We got Colorado at the aforementioned USC Trojans up next. The -11 a hook. That's in the Coliseum. USC as the home favorite here, Jeff. 64 the total.
Yeah, I'm the first one to admit that I was completely wrong on Colorado this season, Drew. I'm not sure what you thought of them coming in, but I had the Buffaloes way down with their first-year head coach, Carl Durrell, but he has outperformed every imaginable metric that I could come up with in this season. They're 2-0, straight up and against the spread this season, both outright upset underdog wins over UCLA and Stanford. Carl Durrell, he's 19-6 against the Vegas number as an underdog. 12-0 against the number, his last 12. And if you read the clippings and comments in the newspapers out there in Colorado, the players love playing for him. He has the attention of the locker room. He owns the locker room. The players have bought into his program and what he believes in, his vision. I'm very bullish now on Colorado. They proved me wrong. I think they're a good program going in the right direction. You have the Trojans. I alluded to it earlier. They're 3-0 this year. Finally, a pretty convincing win against Utah. 33-17 last week. They're 14-0 straight up, Drew, in this series against Colorado. And it's the first time this season that USC is playing a team that's not playing in their season opener. It's an interesting little tidbit. USC, what concerns me is laying points with them. They're 2-8 against the Vegas number. Their last 10 as home favorites of 8 or more points. And then you got Clay Helton, who I have ranked as in the bottom quarter of my head coaching power ratings. He's 3-11 against the spread with a win percentage of 800 or greater. And he's 0-7 against the spread under those circumstances if he's favored by 5 or more points. I also read earlier today that USC had to cancel practice. And I think they just recently resumed, or they're going to resume tomorrow because they've had a COVID outbreak within the program. They had to stop practice yesterday and today, but they have, I think I read on ESPN a few minutes ago that they've resumed practice as of today.
Wow, yeah, that's always a big part of the handicap in terms of being able to practice in 2020. Also, some guys in the chat box, Corey Williams saying looking for the over, and with limited practice, sometimes that does equal to affecting the defense and their ability to kind of practice tackling. So maybe look towards that in Colorado, USC. As well. Moving down the card, Conference USA action, 219-220, North Texas at UTSA. We got the Roadrunners, -3 at home favorites, 67 the total here as they take on the Mean Green, Jeff.
Yeah, I think we've become experts in the Roadrunners, Drew. I think every week I somehow end up with a Texas San Antonio game, which I love because I love this program and what they've done. They enter off back-to-back wins over UTEP and Southern Miss, not very impressive. But you look at what this team has done against the talent level and the schedule they played. They've been competitive against some of the best teams in the nation. They were 21-13 loss at UAB as a 21-point underdog. They lost 27-20 at BYU as a 34-point underdog, and they upset Louisiana Tech 27-26 as a 3-point underdog. This UTSA team is undervalued, underrated in the betting market. They're first in Conference USA. The home team is 6-0 against the Vegas number in this series. That favors UTSA. However, I love the Mean Green. I love what's happening in this program. They're off back-to-back wins against Middle Tennessee State and Rice. They played once in only 5 weeks, but they looked very good against Rice last week. Their bowl hopes are alive. They need a win in this game, and I think they're going to snag it. I think North Texas is a live underdog. They opened up as a 5.5 point road underdog. It's been bet down to 3.5. I agree with the market move. I think the value is still with the Mean Green. Take the points with North Texas, outright underdog winner.
Heading to the Big 12 up next, Jeff. Texas Tech at Oklahoma State. We're seeing the Cowboys -11 in Stillwater, 54 the total here.
Yeah, well, here's another one of these bubble burst teams. Oklahoma State enters in off a 41-13 deflating loss against Oklahoma. I can't imagine laying points with this Oklahoma State team after that performance. They're 1-6. People always ask me, well, how do they do after playing the Sooners in that rivalry game? Well, they're 1-6 against the spread their last 7 games following Oklahoma. So that tells you right out of the gates that the market overvalues them, and they never exceed market expectations after they go all in the Sooners game. Their offense has struggled the last 2 weeks. They're only averaging 17 points per game. There are injuries throughout the offensive unit. You have Spencer Sanders, the quarterback. He's questionable. You have the running back Hubbard. He is probable, but he's battling injuries. They do have the Big 12's best defense, so that's one thing Oklahoma State has going for them. But they also have a COVID-19 issue outbreak in the program. I've been reading about that all day today. That's an issue in Oklahoma State. They're dealing with COVID issues. I would not be surprised to see this game canceled at the last minute. It hasn't happened yet, but I think it's a possibility of this game being called. Texas Tech, they're a disaster. Matt Wells has been completely he has just failed to reach expectations as the coach there. They're coming off a win against Baylor 24-23 2 weeks ago, and they've covered 5 of the last 6 in this series. The last 2 meetings with Oklahoma State, they've won outright. They must win this game to keep their bowl wins alive, their bowl hopes alive. But I just don't see Texas Tech being competitive, and I don't see how Oklahoma State gets up for this game. I have no feel for where this is going. I can see it low scoring. If anything, I would take under the total in the game.
Okay, and we can get it as high as 54.5. Most sports books at 54 flat, but there is the hook on that number looking towards the under in that Big 12 matchup. Heading to the Big 10 here, Jeff. Ohio State at Illinois. We're seeing Ohio State 4 touchdown road favorites, 71.5 being the total in Champaign.
Yeah, how about Lovie Smith? Here we go. We talked about him last week, I believe. But here he is. You talk about Kevin Sumlin, his seat was on fire, and continues to be on fire. Lovie Smith, before the last couple of weeks, it was getting hot. It was getting warm, closer to hot. What does Lovie Smith do? Back-to-back outright upset wins, including last week against Nebraska. Illinois beat Nebraska in Lincoln for the first time since 1924. Lovie Smith has his locker room, has the players playing hard for him. He has Peters back, the starting quarterback. He's healthy, and he put up over 490 yards against Nebraska last week. You have Lovie Smith. He's 5-2 against the Vegas number at home versus undefeated foes. This is a lot of points to be giving Illinois at home. Ohio State, 42-35 win over Indiana. Don't get fooled by that final score. They were up 35-7 in the second half, Ohio State, and somehow they let Indiana crawl back into it. But they gave up 490 yards, the Buckeyes. That's the most they've given up since 2018. But they are 9-0 straight up in the series. And if you look at Ryan Day for Ohio State, the head coach, he's 5-1 against the spread versus teams with a losing record. And he's won those games by an average score of 59-14. If you're going to play it, I would probably lay it. I think Illinois is still celebrating their win over Nebraska. Like I said, the first time since 1924, they went into Lincoln and pulled the outright win. But this Ohio State defense, it is questionable at best. I think it's suspect. It's something to keep an eye on going forward.
He's Jeff, Oskiem Sports at WagerTalk.com. Guys, check him out. He's got some good track records here. 34-17, 67% all-time on 5% NFL plays. We got NCAA starting up his 5% NCAA plays, 36-24, 60%. Also, over 200% net profit produced since 2017, all-time at WagerTalk. He's up over 200%. Limited volume here, guys. Not the type of handicapper throwing out 5% all the time, which is usually a good thing in terms of quality over quantity in your handicapper. So check them out, wagertalk.com. 1 year all access package with Jeff. We got a coupon code here for $1,000 off. Black Friday special. BF999.
Wow, I might get that. That is really good. I might even get that. That's a good deal.
That coupon code BF999 at checkout. We got Coastal Carolina at Texas State up next. The Chanticleers. Is that right, Jeff?
I can't. I was going to ask you. I thought it was. I always say Chanticleers.
Is it Chanticleers?
I
Whatever
say
I'm saying,
Chanticleers.
it's
Someone
wrong
was
each
giving,
time.
I think it's Chanticleers, but hopefully someone can pipe in here and tell us that we're completely off the mark. What I do know is the Chanticleers are 8-0, and that the pressure continues to mount. They had that upset win over Appalachian State last week. Actually, not an upset win. They were favored by, I think, 4.5, 5 points, but they won 34-23. That snapped a 6-game losing streak Coastal Carolina had against the Mountaineers. A win today, a win on Saturday over Texas State clinches the Sun Belt East for Coastal Carolina. The issue they might have is they have a game against Liberty on deck. Now, Liberty is coming off their first loss, so it might not be as appealing as it once was when they were undefeated. But I still think you could catch Coastal Carolina looking past this Texas State team, who's 2-9 this year, towards Liberty next week. The other issue is Jamie Chadwell. His name has been tossed around for head coaching jobs, one in particular in South Carolina. You look at Texas State, they're 2-9, but they're coming off a very big win, a 47-45 upset win over Arkansas State. But I don't know if you saw this, Drew. I just saw this probably 10 minutes before we went on air. A defensive cornerback for Texas State, Cambrell Winters, he was fatally shot tonight in a drug deal that went bad. Apparently, it was a drug deal at some apartment complex. He was killed, among others, and I'm not sure if Texas State's going to play this game or not. But if they do play it, I guarantee you the players are going to dedicate it to him, their fallen teammate, and I think there's going to be a lot of motivation for Texas State. With that angle in play, I would probably grab the points with the Bobcats, but it's just sad, the tragedy to see a young kid like that get shot under those circumstances.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that's new information to me. Obviously, an unfortunate situation there for him and his family, the Texas State football program. So, yeah, I mean, is this game going to be played is now a question. I was going to throw out there, Jeff, just from a handicapping only standpoint, Coastal Carolina off that huge win against App State, now having to go on the road to San Marcos, Texas, face a Texas State team. Well, I don't have the record in front of me, but it's not a very good straight up record at all.
2-9,
and they're going to have they're going to have to lay 17 points. It's just spot wise. This isn't a good Coastal spot, at all. So that's what makes me look towards the underdog, Jeff.
I agree. They also have, like I mentioned before, they have Liberty on deck, so they could easily look past this Texas State team.
We got South Alabama, Arkansas State up next. It looks like 64 being the total in Jonesboro. Arkansas State -7 against the USA Jaguars.
Talk about dumpster fires. We got two right here, Drew. We have the Jaguars. They're off 4 straight losses. They're 0-3-1 against the spread their last 4. Get this, South Alabama, 1-18 straight up their last 19 road games. They're only averaging 12 points their last 4 games. They're a complete disaster and utter embarrassment. You got the Arkansas State Red Wolves. You have, I like Blake Anderson. They're 16-5 against the spread as a conference home favorite under Blake Anderson. The problem is they're coming off a 47-45 upset loss to Texas State. They've lost 4 straight. They are 1-3 against the spread their last 4. And now they have been officially eliminated from postseason play. They can't become eligible for a bowl. So I think, and that snaps a 9-year bowl run for Arkansas State. I can't see them getting up for this game at all. They have nothing to really play for. I would stay away from this, but if you're going to do anything, I would probably take South Alabama plus the points. But this is, you see 2 dumpster fires like this, run.
Well, next one up is a little bit bigger showcase game here, talking about the Iron Bowl, 3:30 Eastern on CBS. Top 22 matchup here is the Auburn Tigers take on the Alabama Crimson Tide. We're seeing Alabama, Jeff, as high as -26-point favorites, mostly 25-point favorites in this one, 62.5 or 63 being the total in Tuscaloosa, Jeff.
Yeah, this is going to be a pretty good game, the Iron Bowl, but I went back and looked at the common opponents that both of these teams have played. They played Ole Miss, Georgia, Tennessee, Arkansas, and Kentucky. Alabama, 4-0 straight up, 3-1 against the spread against those opponents. They finished plus 210 yards per game and plus 31 points per game. You look at Auburn, they were also 3-1 straight up and against the spread against those opponents. They were minus 87 points per game and only yards per game and plus 4 points per game. So against common opponents, Alabama blew them out. Auburn squeaked by with 3 wins in 4 of the games. The last 4 Iron Bowls in Tuscaloosa, Alabama's 4-0 straight up and against the spread. They've won and covered each one of those games by double digits. They've won each one of those games by an average of 28 points per game. You have Alabama coming in. Nick Saban has been tested positive of COVID-19. He will not be on the sidelines in this game. How did the market react to that? It didn't. The point spread stayed the same. I agree with that. There's really no value. He has excellent assistance. I'm not concerned about the Alabama team going in there without Nick Saban on the sidelines. Now, Alabama is looking to avenge a 48-45 loss to Auburn last year. And here's an interesting tidbit. The last 4 times Nick Saban was out for revenge versus Auburn, he went 4-0, straight up and against the spread, winning by an average of 26.5 points per game. If you're going to do anything in this game, I think you would have to lay it with Alabama. And we've talked about it before on this show, Drew. Bo Nix, the quarterback for Auburn, he is a complete disaster on the road. He's a completely different quarterback on foreign soil. If you look at his statistics, the dichotomy between road and home is unbelievable. He's only completed 54% of his passes away from Auburn, and he is with an 11-10 touchdown to interception ratio. The only way I can look at this game is with Alabama laying the big number.
All right, looking towards the favorite in the Iron Bowl for that one. We got FAU at Middle Tennessee State up next. Looks like the Owls, -6 in the hook, road favorite, 48 the total in Murfreesboro.
Here's another one of our favorites, Drew. We have Willie Taggart, right? We have Lovie Smith, Willie Taggart. I feel like I always have a Willie Taggart game as well on our docket here. But Florida Atlantic, I mean, this program. Willie Taggart has really done well here this first year down there. They enter off 4 straight wins. They beat UMass last week. What was it, like 24-2, something like that? Ridiculous. But you see what this Florida Atlantic defense is doing? They're allowing only 11 points per game this year. They've allowed a total of 30 points in their last 4 games overall. And one of the best decisions Willie Taggart did with this team is the offense has surged when he switched to the dual threat quarterback Posey. It's been an entirely different team. So Florida Atlantic is worth the price of admission just to see their defense because it's phenomenal. I think it's the best defense in Conference USA by a large margin. So there's no question about that. They're 5-0 the last 5 as against the spread as conference favorites. They're 20-10-1 against the spread in conference play. You have the Blue Raiders. They enter off a 2017 upset win over Troy. And they also had recent upsets against Rice and Florida International. So this is a program that's turning it around a little bit too late, but they actually are playing much better. They're 10-2 straight up, 8-4 against the spread in the series. The home team is 4-0 straight up and against the spread. The last 4 in this series, the Blue Raiders are 5-1 against the number. Their last 6 as a home underdog, 8-1 against the spread. The last 9 as a conference home underdog. I have no opinion on this game. My math model makes the number, I think, 7.8 in favor of Florida Atlantic. So the line is fair. There's no value. I would pass.
Jeff, next game up, we head into the Big 12 here. Kansas State at Baylor. Baylor, the Bears, -5.5 in Waco, 45 the total in this one.
Yeah, so the Baylor Bears, they are probably the best. What are they, 1-6? 1-6 this year? They're the best 1-6 team in the nation by far. They enter off 5 straight losses. They've covered their last 2 against the spread, however. All 5 of those losses were by 11 points or less. So they've been competitive in every single game this season. They were, in fact, in 5 of those, I think in 3 of those 5 losses, they either were tied or led in the second half before ultimately losing. Their defense is phenomenal. They're ranked 22nd in defensive efficiency this year, and they have a big edge at quarterback with Brewer. He has the experience, the arm, and the weapons to move the ball down the field. Yeah, the Wildcats, I can't get a feel for this team. They're always live as an underdog. I typically look at them, but they enter off 3 straight losses, including last week a 45-0 loss to Iowa State. But they were missing several players due to COVID, so I don't want to overreact to that. But it was the worst loss in head coach Chris Kleiman's career. So I think he's going to have the team motivated to bounce back from such a poor performance. But there's also a quarterback controversy brewing in Kansas State. They pulled Howard last week, and I'm not sure who is going to get the start for Kansas State this week, but they're already missing their starting quarterback who has been out for the year, Skylar Thompson. And since he's gone out, the offense has not looked the same. So I would lay it with Baylor if I had to do anything. I think this is an undervalued team. They're coming off a bye. They should be healthier than they have been in the past. So I would look to lay it if you're going to play it.
Jeff, next game up, we got Texas A&M hosting LSU. We're talking about the Aggies here, knocking on the door of the college football playoff, ranked at I believe number 5 in the initial college football rankings. So style points might start to matter here towards the end of the stretch. Has to become part of your handicap with the sport of college football in terms of style points. And they're hosting LSU here, the defending national champions. Obviously lost a lot, Coach O did, in terms of talent and what they're able to produce on the scoreboard. Now we're seeing 63.5 in College Station. Texas A&M minus 14 in the hook, so they're going to have to win by more than 2 touchdowns if you want to cash your ticket on Texas A&M. What are you thinking here with the Tigers and Aggies, Jeff?
Yeah, I think you're right, Drew, about the style points. I think Texas A&M is going to be out to gain some style points in this game. You look at they've had back-to-back games postponed, but they're off 4 straight wins, but they haven't played since November 7th. So I'll be curious to see how they look after such a long layoff. They've only been favored once in this series, and that was back in 2018, and they actually won the game. They should be able to pass up and down the field against this LSU defense. The LSU defense, incidentally, lost 2 cornerbacks last week against Arkansas. The result of that, you can imagine Arkansas's offense, 24% of the Razorbacks passes graded as explosive last week against the Tigers. You talk about a red flag, and you have Kelly Mond coming in with a 14-2 TD to interception ratio for Texas A&M. He's going to have a big game. I think Texas A&M is going to pile on the points against this porous LSU defense. The issue I have here is one of these technical situations where if you have defending national champions like LSU, they're 15-3 straight up, 13-5 against the spread in conference games in which they are 500 or worse on the season. And that would be LSU falling squarely within that situation. So you add to the fact that LSU is 8-1 straight up and 9-0 against the spread in the series, the last 9 in this series. That also concerns me. If I had to do anything, I would probably lay it with Texas A&M. I have a hard time getting a feel for LSU with all of the COVID issues they've had, with all of the injuries they've had. Brennan, the quarterback, is out. I have a difficult time getting a feel for this team. So if anything, I think you're right, Drew. That angle of style points become more and more important as the season goes on. And I think the Aggies will look to pile it on in this game.
Yeah, Jeff, good analysis there, man. I agree with you. LSU's kind of a tricky handicap. I don't know if I really like betting on or against them. I don't feel like I have a strong read either. Kind of a tough team to read in 2020. We got UTEP at Rice up next, 44.5 being the total. Rice, the Owls, minus 11 in the hook at home. I'll tell you, I don't know if it definitely hasn't happened very much in the last decade or so. Rice laying doubles. I don't know if I've ever really seen it, Jeff, but it's happening here against UTEP.
Yeah, that tells you how bad UTEP is. I mean, although they are improved, I have to say they're actually much improved this year. They're 3-4 on the year, and they actually have a chance to become bowl eligible if they keep playing well like they have. The Miners, though, they've had 4 of their last 6 games postponed. That's an issue. They've lost 3 straight, but they do have their bowl hopes alive and well if they can reschedule some of those previous games that were canceled. The Owls, I was bullish on them coming into the season. They have a lot of veteran and experienced players on the team. I like their head coach, but they come in off a 27-17 loss to North Texas, and they've only played once since October 31st. So we have 2 teams that have not played a lot over the last 2 months, and that's going to be a concern. Rice is 14-3 against the spread, the last 17 in this series, and they've won 11 of the last 14 outright in this series. If anything, I would look at Rice laying the number. I think they're begging you. I think they're begging you to take the points with the Miners. If anything, I would go the other way and lay it with the Owls.
Jeff, next game up, we got the Egg Bowl here. Mississippi State at Ole Miss, 241, 242. If you're following along at home, the rotation numbers, 4 o'clock Eastern. So it's going up against the Iron Bowl, interestingly enough. 69 being the total, minus 9 in the hook. That's the Ole Miss running Rebels at home in Oxford.
So this is I think you've probably read about this, how last year the Ole Miss wide receiver there, they scored a touchdown in the final seconds of the game. They needed an extra point to tie it. And what does the wide receiver do when he caught the touchdown pass? He pretends to be a dog in the end zone, urinating on the field, lifting his leg like a dog. He gets flagged for 15 yards. You can't make this stuff up, Drew. You can't make this stuff up. So what happens? They move the team back 15 yards to kick the extra point, and sure enough, The kicker misses the extra point. What happens? The head coach is fired. The entire coaching staff is fired from Ole Miss after that, all because of this wide receiver urinating on the field like a dog. Yeah, I mean, this is crazy. This is crazy stuff. But you look at the Rebels this year, what an offense. I mean, they're third-ranked offense. They're averaging 565 yards per game. They're top 25 in offensive efficiency and pace. This is going to be up and down, up and down. This game is going to fly way over the total. I went back to see if there's any correlation between lower-scoring games because it's a rivalry game. There's no correlation whatsoever. So don't be spooked away from taking the over just because it's a rivalry game. This game is going to be in the 70s and 80s. It's going to be crazy because you look at the Rebels defense, they have no defense. I mean, Drew, we could play defense better than this. This is pathetic. You look at them, they're third to last in yards per game allowed, fourth to last in the nation in points per game at 40.9. And their defense is ranked 123rd in both EPA and success rate. I mean, this is a Ole Miss defense that does not even go out in the field to play. But Mississippi State, they have no offense. They're coming off their best performance of the year, though. They were a 31-24 loser at Georgia, but that was since the season opener. That's the first life I've seen from this Bulldog team. They have a huge defensive advantage in this game, but their offense can go nowhere. But they actually have a chance to move the chains against Ole Miss in this game. Mike Leach, 8-2 against the spread as a conference road dog off a loss versus a foe off a win. If anything, I think Mississippi is going to win this game by double digits. I would lay it if you're going to play it.
And next game up, heading to the Sun Belt here, another rivalry game, Battle of Louisiana Sun Belt teams, 3:00 Eastern kick, 243, 244, Louisiana Lafayette at Louisiana Monroe, 54 being the total, minus 28 in the hook. That's the Lafayette Ragin' Cajuns having to win by more than 4 touchdowns here, Jeff, on the road.
Yeah, Louisiana Monroe is another team that qualifies as a dumpster fire. I mean, they haven't played since November 7th, and that's actually a good thing because they've lost their last 4 before that by double digits. They're minus 132 net yards this season per game. They're a complete disaster. Louisiana, on the opposite side of the coin, they're 7-1 this year. They're off a 38-10 win over South Alabama 2 weeks ago. The road team in this series, interestingly enough, is 18-2-1 since 1999. The underdog is 17-3-1 against the spread in the series. But this is the biggest line in the series history, 28.5, whatever it is now. It's never been this high before in the history of these two programs playing one another. The Cajuns 10-2 straight up the last 12. They're 122 plus 122 net yards per game. They've already locked up the Sun Belt West title, so I'm not sure how motivated they're going to be. I wouldn't touch this game. If I did anything, I'd probably take the points, sit in the corner in a fetal position with my legs and fingers crossed and hope they cover. But I'm not going to do that on Saturday. I think I'm going to pass altogether in this game.
The hold your nose special, maybe, with the underdog.
Yes.
The Warhawks in that one. He's Jeff from Oskiem Sports. Check him out, WagerTalk.com, as we got the Degenerate special up next. Looks like up over 200% all-time net profit produced at WagerTalk. If you're looking for the lower volume type of handicapper, which is where I would kind of lean you to if you're new to sports betting, check him out. He's really good on 5% plays. He's got a 5% in the NFL total of the month up right now on WagerTalk.com, and his 5% NFL plays are 34 and 17, 67%. So a short sample size here, guys, but it's with the low volume. Really good handicapper here with Jeff from Oskiem Sports on WagerTalk.com. And we got the 1-year all access special Black Friday deal just this week. BF999 is the coupon code at checkout for the 1-year all access special. You get it for $1,000 off. That is BF999 at checkout. So 11 p.m. Eastern, next game up here, Jeff. Degenerate special, the get back special if you're down, the cherry on top if you're up. Don't bet too much. But for somebody looking for action here on the East or West Coast, last game on the board, Jeff, would love an opinion as we got Nevada, -7 road favorites out on the island. Hawaii, the Rainbow Warriors, the home underdogs here, 60.5 being the total in Aloha Stadium, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm just thinking again about that coupon code for $1,000 off. I can't help but think that I'm being pimped out at that rate. I mean, $1,000 off, that's incredible. In any event, so Putting that aside, I would encourage everyone to get that because that is incredible value for any of the handicappers at WagerTalk. It's a tremendous group of handicappers there. But back to this game, the degenerate special late at night, what is it, 11:59, whatever it is. The Nevada Wolfpack, I mean, they're 5-0 this year. I was bullish on them. This is the best team that Norvell has had during his tenure in Reno. They're coming off a win over San Diego State, 26-21, an upset win. I think they were 1.5 point underdogs in that game. But they limited the Aztecs to just 41 yards in the second half. An incredible defensive performance by the Wolfpack. And one of the reasons why they're 5-0, this significant defensive improvement on the defensive side of the ball. They're 90 yards per game better than last year's defensive unit. They're 6-2 straight up and against the number in this series dating back to 2012. You look at Hawaii, they're off back-to-back losses to San Diego State and Boise State. But head coach Todd Graham, he's actually 22-4 against the spread at home versus opponents off a straight up and against the spread win. Hawaii is 5-1 straight up and against the spread at home in this series following a conference game. My math model only favors Nevada by 5.4 points in this game. So if I would lean with Hawaii, if you can get 7.5, I know it was at 7.5 at one point. I missed it. But if it ticks back up to 7.5 at -110 odds or better, I would encourage a pretty solid investment on the Hawaii Rainbows.
Yeah, looking towards the home underdog there in the degenerate special towards Hawaii plus the 7 from Jeff. So Jeff, in this section, do you have a most confident play you want to give out there to the listeners?
Yeah, it's a good question. I am going to go with the North Texas Mean Green plus the points. It's actually a client play of mine. I released it Monday morning to my clients, North Texas plus 5 or 5.5. I know the number is down to 3.5, but even at 3.5, I think North Texas is worth an investment. So I would take the Mean Green plus the points as my best bet.
All right, so the Mean Green plus the points for the best bet. And if you're up late on Saturday, need some action, looking towards the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors plus the full touchdown at home on the island. So Jeff, man, always good. The day before Thanksgiving. Hope you enjoy Thanksgiving. Thanks for joining. And anything else you want to throw out there before we?
No. I appreciate you having me on, Drew. It's always a pleasure being on with you every week. I love the program. I love what you do at WagerTalk, and I hope you and your family have a great Thanksgiving. And I look forward to talking with you again soon, probably next week, going over another full card of college football games.
Yeah, Jeff. Well, enjoy it with your family, man, and best of luck and enjoy the weekend, buddy.
Thanks, Drew. Appreciate it.
All right, Jeff. Have a good one. And guys, we do have 4 more games here that. It was just a lot on the slate for the handicappers. So I'm just going to break them down real quick so we can say this is the Every Game on the Board podcast. We got 7:00 Eastern, 285, 286 Memphis versus Navy, 62.5 being the total, -13 in a hook for Memphis on the road. In all the games here, guys, because it kind of got shifted around 2020, you know how it is with the added games at the end. This is one that I just really don't feel that confident in. I mean, we got a Memphis team that's 1-4 their last 5 ATS going up against a Navy team. Now, I guess you can say they have extra preparation time. No, they do not actually. Excuse that language. They do not have extra preparation time for Navy, which if you made me bet it, I would probably look towards the Navy side because of that factor. I'm just not so sure it's enough points here with the Navy program that isn't one of the better Navy teams in the last few years. But heck, if you need to bet the Memphis Navy game on a full Saturday card, especially at the 7:00 hour, I would lean you towards the underdog plus the 2 touchdowns. Yeah, but that is not a very confident play there, guys. We got Louisville, BC, one that we couldn't hit just with the load on all the handicappers here. 55 being the total, -1. That's BC at home. I know Louisville's kind of getting a little bit more, I guess you could say, healthy over the COVID issues, but Boston College, this BC team, they got, pretty good amount of talent, a well-coached team here under the new head coach, the former defensive coordinator for Ohio State. We got Boston College at a reasonable number here, guys, under a touchdown, home favorites here against the Louisville Cardinal. I'm not sold on Louisville. I know they won 30-0 against Syracuse, but against the better, more well-coached teams here, Against Virginia, they didn't look that good. Yeah, they beat Florida State, but Florida State isn't all that good. I don't know. I lean Boston College here at the -1 price tag being at home. Got two more here, two that I'm a little bit more confident in, actually. And Paco, happy Thanksgiving to you. Johnny Outlaw in the chat box, guys. Appreciate everybody joining, breaking down each and every game, both NFL and college football. So every single American football game for you, getting it all out before 5 o'clock Pacific on Wednesday. So you can get it, via your podcast or on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. It all works. And feel free to shout out to me, guys, on Twitter at Drew Martin Bets. And we're also doing this live from the WagerTalk Twitter as well. So that works on Periscope too. We got 2 games left here that none of the handicappers could hit. I didn't want to put too many games on anyone's slate here, especially going into a holiday weekend. So I'm hitting them here at the end. 295, 296, Vanderbilt at Missouri, 51 being the total. Missouri, the Tigers, -14 and a half at home in Columbia, Missouri. This Vanderbilt team, guys, if you've listened to me talk about them, not a good team in any sense. They're 0-7, but you got to keep in mind in 2020, they're playing an all SEC schedule. So I believe there wasn't actually a season win total on Vanderbilt because of the fact they didn't want to put up a half a win as a season win total for any team. I don't remember seeing a season win total on them. However, I wouldn't be surprised if they're able to pull one of these games out at the end because they've been playing better of late. We talk about the quarterback, Kenny Seals, former Texas high school quarterback. If you watch him throw the ball, he's very talented. He's accurate throwing the ball down the field. And he's got 7 games under his belt. So he's not, to call him a true freshman. Yes, he's technically a true freshman, but he's got a lot of experience here against all SEC competition. So he's like the most experienced true freshman you could almost really have in terms of through 7 games through your season against that kind of competition. And sure enough, it's starting to show up. They weren't a great ATS team at the start, but now Vanderbilt, with a banged up defense, has won their last 3 games against the spread. And that includes the Florida Gator team this past time. They played Kentucky, almost could have won that game against Kentucky, and against Mississippi State, covering their last 3 games here. I'm not looking to break that trend. I like Vanderbilt. I'm not saying Missouri's terrible by any means, but I think Vanderbilt's a tough team here. Derek Mason, Ted Roof as his defensive coordinator, even though they are banged up in the defensive backfield on the defensive side overall, I think that this offense is waking up a little bit. So if you're liking an underdog out there, heck, even sprinkle a little bit here on the money line. I think the Vanderbilt Commodores +2 touchdowns. You can even get them 14 and a half here. So as my best bet for these 4 games, because I always ask the handicappers to give out the most confident play, it is the Vanderbilt Commodores plus the 14 in a hook, which you can get offshore. It's +14 at other shops here in Las Vegas. So I guess most confident play here, guys, Vanderbilt plus the 14 in this 4-game segment. And last game here, guys, to cap off, I don't know how many games this weekend, but of course, without the bye weeks. Now, granted, there are postponements, but still, this was a lot of games for today, and we broke them all down here, college football and the NFL, all of the segments available on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. And feel free to, scroll down the Twitter, the Periscope as well. But we got Utah at Washington, a little bit degenerate feel here, 10:30 p.m. Eastern kick here, so 7:30 p.m. Pacific. Only the Hawaii game is going to be on later than this. So if you're needing some late night action, you get it here with Utah versus Washington. 49.5 being the total, -6.5 or -7, depending where you're shopping. That's the Washington Huskies at home. Now, granted, the numbers could change by the time this kicks. If you're watching on replay, Thanksgiving, traveling for Friday, Black Friday, or even Saturday. But as I'm talking right now, right before 5 o'clock Pacific on Wednesday, we got Utah, Washington -6.5 or -7. I don't know. Utah is kind of a tough handicap here because they did lose a lot from last year's team. They didn't look particularly good against USC in their first game. They had, some postponements otherwise. So this is only their second game. They did lose to USC 17-33, losing ATS as well. And the Washington Huskies, Against Arizona, they won and covered 44-27. But against Oregon State, if you remember that game, they got out to a lead in the first half. There was some, higher scoring first half, and then they shut it down in the second half of that game. And I that worries me a little bit because we get, Whittingham, the head coach for Utah, one of the better head coaches in college football. I think we're going to see a better Utah team this second time around, even though they are on the road against a Washington team that you would think is, towards the upper echelon of the Pac-12 in this conference. But I still like this Utah team, especially, you get a full touchdown here. So if you're looking to bet it sidewise, I would side you towards the Utes plus the 7. So hitting the chat box here to end it, guys. Michael Lee, welcome in. Paco Healy. Yeah, hustling. We had a full day, no doubt about it, Paco. But always good to see you. Hopefully you're enjoying the Thanksgiving weekend in Southern California. And let me know next time you're coming to Las Vegas. Corey Williams, welcome in as well. And you're looking towards the over in the Memphis game. So heck, yeah, I didn't have a strong opinion on that. So throw it out there because they do score a bunch of points, according to Corey in the chat box. And Navy can get points against the Memphis defense that isn't too strong. So obviously, guys, thank you for tuning in. If you could, please smash the like button on YouTube, Twitter as well. That does help us out. But for all of the handicappers on today's show, both NFL and college football, it's been a pleasure. Really appreciate you guys. Be safe this weekend. Whether you're traveling, keep it between the lines on the road. If you're traveling, I guess keep the mask on if you're in the airport. If you're listening on the podcast, really appreciate you guys listening that way as well. So feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at Drew Martin Bets. Check out WagerTalk.com, SportsMemo.com for any sports betting information. A lot of free bets out there as well. So guys, that does it for the Every Game on the Board podcast. I am Drew Martin, and for all the handicappers out there, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Stay safe, stay well, and best of luck